Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much to behind the scenes, our great friend James Bonney and all the good folks at COAAP. Thank you, as always, to Sharon, the entire board, for the amazing work that you do. And for myself, Robert Breitbard, Director of Educational Partnerships with Burlington English, it's so great to be back with my wonderful co-presenter here. So live from San Diego.
Hi, Robert. Good to be here and welcome everyone. We're glad you decided to join us today to hopefully learn a few about some resources that you have to help you with your programs.
Yes, and again, from all of us here at Burlington English, we're going on, oh my gosh, so many years of being able to be such a key sponsor for these webinars. So thanks to all of you, but the real thanks, I should say, goes out to all of you in adult ed land out there. Just amazing work that you do, obviously always, but particularly for this past year and a half and moving forward. So on behalf of both, I think I can say easily from CASAS and from Burlington English, thanks so much for being here. And as many as you all have, please, 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 if you'd open up that chat box, and again, as many of you have done, go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let's start a community here. So if you'd share your name, the program you're with, and what state you're coming in from. Would love to know who's in the room. So without further ado, let's go ahead and share with you, again, welcome to CASAS and Burlington English, using data and curriculum to prepare students for civic and citizenship success. And with that, I'll turn also for some words now. Gosh, Jane, we're going on quite a few years with our partnership here between CASAS and Burlington.
Yes, it has been a great ride together, and together I think we've been able to help many agencies, especially adapt to this remote testing and instruction period that we've all been in for the last year and a half. So we thank Burlington for really leading the way in remote education and training for teachers, and that has helped the field immensely. So thank you, Burlington.
Well, Jane, thank you. And big shout out to Pat Rickert and all of our friends, not just in San Diego, but all of our CASAS friends throughout the country. Yeah. You do amazing work, and particularly kudos to Linda Taylor and everybody who helped so many programs do the very best they could under challenging situations, again, with remote assessment. And even as we hopefully turn the corner and gradually all go back to both not just on site, but continue online and blended. Really, so many of the great strides have happened because of your hard work at CASAS. So thank you. And now with our agenda for today, Jane.
Okay, well, our goal today is to just kind of briefly review what is civics and citizenship, kind of put that in a simple framework, and then we're going to be talking about what we think is a key skill or a couple of key skills that are often neglected or not emphasized, we think, enough, that would really help your students. And then we'll look at how CASAS data can help provide critical information to help guide instruction. And then we'll look at some examples of how to match Burlington English resources to specific competencies and skill areas that will help your students. So that's our goal. Robert, you ready to take it away?
Definitely. So I know this is something. So in the chat box, what's citizenship? So if anybody want to take a stab at this in the chat, because I got to tell you, this can really open up some healthy exchange. So in the chat, what's citizenship, if you will? And I got to tell you, if anybody even comes anywhere close, I'd be amazed, because as we talk about civics and citizenship, so fluid. Okay, all right, okay, we've got some great responses right away. So strictly going to the technical and to really the purpose of why we're here today. Citizenship, as we'll talk about it today, is just simply defined as, formally defined as the legal relationship between an individual and a state. Now, of course, just to get muddy things a little bit, we always hear, well, he's practicing good citizenship. But for our purposes today, we're going to actually break up and we're going to do that kind of practicing good citizenship more for the civic side. And so for citizenship, we're really talking about, particularly our learners going through, for our purposes, the learners going through the naturalization process. Okay. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself, for all those listening? 1 being a little bit, 10 being a black belt. Where would you rate yourself on your knowledge of the citizenship process? Okay, so 1 to 10, okay, 1 to 10 of that whole naturalization from the very beginning. Okay, I got to admit, I thought I knew a little bit, but even delving into this for many years. Okay, so obviously, once again, for our purposes today, we're just going to take a look at the naturalization process, about what the typical adult education program can impact most readily. So we're not going to cover the full, A to Z, but really probably what we as teachers can most easily, impact. And so just to briefly review of that naturalization process, we're just going to be talking about things leading up to that actual, interview process, that citizenship test, if you will. So I know if you're like me, going back 30 years ago, I heard about the 100 questions, and those were pieces of paper, exchanged all over. Well, indeed, even though that's morphed, that's changed number of questions and then back, just know that what we heard about for years of the 100 questions, what students would often study, were broken up into 2 parts here. And so the first part is the civics test, the first component. And again, that's broken up into what we think we would know. And isn't it interesting? It's called civics, right? Just to throw, again, a little confusion between citizenship and civics. So it's broken up into questions about an individual's knowledge about American government, what they call integrated civics, which is everything, for instance, like the geography, important geographic elements here in the United States. And then lastly, American history. Now, it's interesting, you actually talk to a lot of folks from USCIS, and they say, you know, on average, we're really impressed by the amount of individuals coming into the quote unquote, you know, citizenship test process who do really well on this. It's very controlled. As we know, we've always heard, you know, you'll be asked, let's say 10 questions, but where both folks who've been through the process and again, our friends at USCIS say gives the most challenge is actually something that I don't know when I first started teaching if I knew enough about. And that's what they call, of course, the English test. And that's broken up into 3 areas here, okay? And this is happening during that USCIS interview. And the first part is, you know, the person's ability, you know, to speak when given some questions on paper. So that's going to need some reading, and then obviously speaking those statements aloud rather off of paper, and the agent judging one's ability for comprehensibility. Then what's interesting is the reading part rather also is you know, very similar, is on paper. Excuse me, let me back up. The oral part that I just showed is actually the listening and the speaking, responding to questions and then speaking. The reading part is going to be the paper statements given to the applicant, and the applicant reading them aloud. And then the writing part, this is where Jane and I really have heard the most about, and one of that key skill that we talk about is that the individual is going to be given dictation, if you will. So the agent is going to say a statement, and the person's going to have to actually write it down. So it's called writing, but as we'll see, there's a lot of listening comprehension involved in here. So the first part is the questions, if you will. And then, as many of you know, a big part of this is going to be the form, the lengthy form that, you know, the applicant has to fill out, the N400. And so a part of this interview process is actually going to be the agent asking the individual questions, speaking them aloud, asking them questions about their responses in the N400, about themselves and their eligibility and so on and so forth. So once again, listening comprehension is coming up. So really, that's a big gist of what we're going to be talking about today. What language skill is going to be used the most by this applicant, and most critically? And so once again, what we'll be concentrating on a lot is the listening comprehension. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jane to talk about some really interesting components of CASAS.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Yeah, CASAS has been intimately involved with citizenship preparation for many, many years. And we have several tools that you may not be aware of that may be of help for your students. So the next slide, please. We have 3 different tools that are in line with the USCIS interview process and requirements. So we've been always working to make sure that these are in line and up to date with what the requirements are. These tools provide very important practice before the USCIS interview. So it really builds self-confidence for the students because they've been in a simulation situation where they've been interviewed by an instructor, and they can practice being interviewed. And so that really helps build their confidence when they go in for the real interview. The test questions engage the citizenship students to really become more familiar with the subject matter of the whole naturalization process. So they're working on reading skills and speaking and listening and writing skills. And then the test results will help guide instruction so that, again, if you know where your students' weaknesses are, you can really hone in on those so that, again, you're preparing them specifically for this interview. So let me just quickly kind of go over what these three tests are. One is the citizenship interview test, and it is designed as a one-on-one oral interview, and it simulates the what the USCIS examiner will be asking. And so the students have to answer questions regarding their N400 application, and it's really appropriate for high beginning to advanced English language students. So again, practicing using this tool will help the students improve or gain self-confidence in their speaking and listening skills. And there is training available for programs that want to include this in their as a resource for their students. The second exam, or not second, but another exam, is the CASAS Government and History for Citizenship test. And in this, with these tests, and there are alternate forms as there are for the interview test, they listen to the questions and then they have to choose the correct response. And they can do this either on using the computer CASAS e-test or on a paper test form. And this really zeroes in on their knowledge about American government and history. Again, this is for high beginning to advanced English language students. And the third tool that we have is CASAS Reading for Citizenship tests. And these assess reading comprehension, but again, in the context of citizenship. And these forms are NRS approved. So if your state has included these, you can use these to measure reading comprehension and EFL gains. It really helps, again, the students to keep focused on government and history while being measured how their reading skills are. And this has been designed for low beginning English language students. So it's really for those of you who are familiar with CASAS, it's at our beginning level CASAS level A, and bridge tests between A and B level. So this is a tool that's really appropriate for those low students with minimal literacy skills. So we really want to help the students increase their confidence so that when they go to the interview, they feel prepared. And so these tests are available for your programs to implement if you think this would be of help. Next slide, please. In a more general avenue, CASAS has listening. We also test just listening in general. And what has changed over the years is measuring listening from paper test to measuring listening via CASAS e-test. And this has been a tremendous has created an advantage for programs by allowing students to be tested automatically in a lab situation, and you can have multiple levels in the same room and tested at the same time. And students are given a listening placement test, and that automatically puts them into the correct pre-test. So that's a one test event for the students, and that makes it very easy to administer. And we have found that with the students using headphones, they can really focus on what they are hearing. There is no reading required. They're really asked to listen and then to choose the correct answer based, again, really focusing on listening skills. So this has been a real boon for programs to add listening as a way to measure a student's skills, because often we know that a person's reading skills may be very strong, but their listening skills may be weaker if they've had traditional training outside of the country. So they really need to strengthen their listening and speaking skills here. So again, we really encourage programs to add listening so that when you're placing students and working with students, you're looking at both listening and reading skills of students.
Perfect. And just curious, in the chat, if you happen to use the traditional paper and pencil, and then obviously playing some type of audio file, audio source for your learners, but using booklets, would you put that in the chat? And then how many of you are actually using e-tests and actually delivering it as Jane just shared. I got to admit, Jane, this was wonderful because when I first got into CASAS in 1998, boy, did we need so many rooms and so many tape recorders. So this is, so thank you for all your innovation with this. All righty. Well, great. Well, and now some data here.
So when a person takes a CASAS listening test, this in eTest, then these reports are, this is one example of a report that's available. And this is called an individual skills profile. So this is for Jesse Campos. He's at the fictitious Rolling Hills Adult School, and he's in the ESL program. And if you could click to the next. So this shows that Jesse has taken a listening and a reading test, and he's scored an NRS level 6 for both reading and listening. And it shows how many questions he got correct. And then the next section shows you what are the reading competencies that where his strengths are and areas that he could work on. Again, it shows the reading content standards. Oh, there's government and law. So this fits in with our preparing for citizenship and just for civics as well. And there are civics competencies throughout all of these competency areas. Then we have a report on content standards. So this will help the teacher know areas to focus on, to work on. And then there are the listening competencies. And again, there's government and law is one of the competency areas, along with consumer economics, community resources, health, employment areas. And then there are the listening content standards. So there's a wealth of information here to let the student know what their strengths are and some areas that they could choose to work on. So this is the information. This is one report that can help the instructors and the student prepare, well, what are their goals and what are some areas that could be focused on in the classroom part. So I'm going to turn this over to Burlington now. What do you do with this information?
Yes, I love this part that again, I always love, Jane, I use this one in almost every presentation. If you're out listening out there and you studied a foreign language, at least 2 years in high school or college, okay, where would you rate yourself on a scale to 1 to 10 now on being able to go to a country that's the native language and use that language that you studied in high school from a 1 to 10, okay? So who's out there? Okay, all right. And now how are you grading yourself? Oh my goodness, I've got the right people here. Yes, 1, 2. I think I have a Gaelic speaker out there. Thank you, Dr. Michael. Yes, okay. All right. So why are you judging yourself? If you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you're judging yourself at that lower level, what skill, if you went to Madrid, if you went to Paris, you went somewhere, what skill would you be lacking in the most? And what's the reason why you judge yourself so poorly? Is it because of your writing, your reading, your speaking, or your listening? Ah, there you go, Jane. I tell you, there you go. Perfect. Exactly. I'm so glad. Typically, it narrows down to the listening and speaking, and mostly in a real life situation, overwhelmingly listening comprehension is coming into play. And so, for instance, what I love about this is, again, I can take all the CASAS data, and Jane will show even more. And as you'll see, one of the challenges is when we were learning a foreign language, we were mostly doing text-based learning. We were mostly using books, and we were doing a lot of reading and writing, research says, in foreign language classes. Yes, some conversation, but in the end, we were probably going home and we were doing homework, not in the listening and speaking realm, but we were just doing reading and writing when we were doing homework. And if true success is practice, then one of the great things that moving away from just purely text-based learning that produces folks like you and me rating ourselves kind of in the ones, the twos, the threes, is we need more listening comprehension. And so what I love with Burlington English here is that it gives the learners super easy ability to, if learning is moving from the known to the unknown, then it allows the learner to, let's say, go through contextualize the naturalization test here in, first getting comfortable with it, with reading. And then, as you'll notice, I have the ability here to, you see the little arrow, to play a sound file so I hear it. But the problem is I've still got that text in front of me. So again, one of my favorite features in Burlington English, and if you teach with Burlington English, you emphasize this a lot with your students, is down in the bottom right that I've highlighted right there. It's that hide the text feature. Totally love that part, that I get to actually, once I get comfortable with this dialogue, as you can see, once I've clicked on hide the text, now when I actually play the arrow in the sound file, it's true listening comprehension. Now, I had that screen up, that previous screen up for a little bit. So in the chat, I want to see who is paying attention, because I know you were. Who is paying attention? Those dots that I'm highlighting right now, what did they have in the previous screen? Okay, what did they have in the previous screen? I want to see that in the chat. If anybody, oh my goodness, I've got it. Oh, and I've actually got some people who don't work for Burlington English. Oh, that's fantastic. Way to go, Carrie. Way to go. That's amazing. Okay, you're right. It did say, are you ready? But it just proves how much that we can rely on text, and then when it's pulled away. So again, love the simulation that we're going on right here. Okay. Also, yeah, once I play that sound file, that it would say, indeed, are you ready? And again, because of those dots, I don't have the support of text. So once again, if you would have been afforded more time, more practice in high school and college, then you actually would be doing a lot better today rather than just reading and writing. Okay, this is also one of my favorites here, is that we can also help our learners get even more comfortable, even to the smallest degree, about going into the naturalization, the interview, if you will, into the USCIS building. Okay, and I love this ability to, again, rather than just giving them books to study and just print, but actually giving them full video. So I'm going to try something here really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but this part, I'm going to share an actual part of Burlington. I actually want to grab this part, which is the ability. Jane, do you see the USCIS agent there, our simulation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Always love that. And so now I can actually click on, and I have the ability to work with my learners to have them actually see a video. I can have them turn on subtitles or turn off subtitles, get comfortable with it. And I'm going to jump ahead just for a moment, just to give you just a little bit of a simulation. So again, our learners, slightly reduce that anxiety because they know what's going to happen just a little bit in that interview process. And then, as you can see, this is that part that's labeled writing, but really in so many ways is like a dictation, because I have to be able to listen. So I'm going to jump ahead just for a moment.
Yeah.
The president lives in the White House.
And Jane, I don't know if I could do that in another language. What a really challenging situation. But again, with Burlington English, you're giving your learners the ability to just slightly reduce that anxiety because they know what's going to be happening. And then they can, once again, just really shows you the importance of listening comprehension. All right, fantastic. Okay. And now we're back to our PowerPoint, Jane?
Yes.
All
Oh,
right.
yes, we are.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. All right. So this part right here that we just went through actually in the program is just one of the best things that you could be doing with your learners. I mentioned also the N400, the form that your students are going to be filling out. And again, you've got that in Burlington English as well. So by the way, if you're if your program is mostly part-time teachers or mostly full-time teachers or 50-50, would you put in the chat box as well? In the chat, would you place if the program you're affiliated with is mostly part-time, mostly full-time, or 50-50? Because 9 out of 10 teachers nationwide are part-time hourly. So this is so great that, you know, there's fantastic resources that, you know, everybody can get from the USCIS, the official website. They're fantastic, been fantastic for the longest time. But for those teachers with very little prep time and everything, it's just so great to know we've got so much simulation here in Burlington English, as you can see right here. Really, really, really helps them out. And as I've highlighted there, there's even like supplemental worksheets, even beyond what students will be seeing. And once again, because this is in green, as you know, if you're familiar with Burlington English, this means that this is the projectable lesson that you're going to be using, whether you're in the classroom, back in the classroom, filling up your whiteboard space, or if you're teaching online through Zoom, Teams, or whatever, this screen is filling up your screen there. All right. And so again, in Burlington, you can see we've got parts of the citizenship exam. We showed the American government part. I've highlighted the fact that there's once again audio files with this. So students again are practicing their listening comprehension. We showed how there's integrated civics was part of the exam. We've got this right here. It asks about the date of, let's say, Independence Day. And then lastly, the last part, the American history part. And so they've got a great chance to explore American history in Burlington English as well. All right. So what exactly is civics? Okay. I won't even ask to put in the chat this one because boy, can this go on. But for our definition for today, I've actually plucked this right out of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So civics education means education, as you can see here, provided to English language learners who are adults. And by the way, it even says professionals and those, you know, certificated in their home country, but not in the US, okay? And that enables such adults to achieve competency in the English language and acquire the basic and more advanced skills to function effectively as parents, workers, and citizens in the United States. I love how comprehensive civics allows us to be, you know, with our learners. And then such services shall include instruction in literacy, English language acquisition, and instruction on and this is part, if you're part of the grant writing process, as you know, one of the big parts that's in WIOA, the 13 considerations, if you do the grant writing or affiliated with it, is it asks you how to address the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, of living in your new country, and particularly civic participation. So here's where we're going to get into when they say they're practicing good citizenship, let's say civic participation. And once again, this gives you a lot of broad scope if you happen to be in a Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funded program, a WIOA program, because it does include, for the definition, workforce training. Okay, so for civics and citizenship success, when I say civics, and if you, in your program, what do you have civics in your program? If you're affiliated with civics, do you have any, is that a component of your adult education program? So in the chat, if you would, if you happen to have civics addressed in your program, and if anybody particularly, I see somebody, and there's a particular initiative that WIOA has, that the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act has. Does anybody put in the chat what that initiative is that is heavily dependent on civics? I see a lot of you have, and that's right. I am so glad that civics is able to take front and center with us in our federal grants, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act particularly brought to the fore, back in 2014 upon its passing, something called IELCE. Now, in the chat, let's see who really the wonks out there. Oh, what is, okay, Rebecca, you beat me to it. I was going to ask, what does IELCE stand for? But you could see in the chat, I knew I had the advanced group here. All right. So what is IELCE? And by the way, let me take this away for just a second. If you're not real familiar, if you're hearing IELCE for kind of sort of the first time, or maybe you're taking your first steps in adult education, get to know this one. This is just a fantastic way to really get our English language learners involved in really putting the W in WIOA. So a lot of you know IET, Integrated Education and Training. Some people have heard ICAPS in Illinois, IBEST, in Washington State. But if this is, by the way, in the chat, if IELCE is relatively new to you, would you put that in the chat? It'd be very interesting. And if you'd like to know more, please reach out to us. This is really, really, really going to be so critical moving forward. So IELCE, just briefly, is the integrated English literacy. So this is your standard, particularly, let's say your advanced ESL class. And at the same time, concurrent is really big, concurrent, at the same time in that English literacy course, that ELL course, they're also emphasizing civics education, okay? And then IELCE typically in most states is interpreted as, at the same time, there's actual career training going on, okay? And this is such an important part of WIOA that it has its own funding stream. So if your program isn't already involved in this, but is eligible to receive federal funds, this is something fantastic. We align, both CASAS and Burlington align perfectly for this initiative. So this is called Section 243, and it's got its own funding stream. And so that's really, really big. Civics taking a big role in that. Also, many of you are aware of this Teaching Skills That Matter initiative. If you're not, something nice to look into as well. And Civic shows up there as well. And now to talk about how different states look at this, we'll take a quick look at how California addresses this. Jane?
Yes, California identified civics education topics 20 years ago and developed what we call COAAPs, which stands for Civic Objective and Additional Assessment Plans. And there are over 50 different ones that we have identified across all areas of competencies. And these are available for anybody outside of California to also look at. They're on our website, and I'll post a link shortly what they are. But these COAAPs are of performance-based assessment. So if you could go ahead and click, Robert. They're performance-based assessments where somebody really needs to demonstrate that they can do something like complete a rental agreement or complete the N400 form or participate in a city council meeting, participate with a interview with, or not an interview, a student teacher meeting. So it's very, very, very practical, and these objectives and the additional assessment plans outline what are the literacy objectives that a person needs to demonstrate, and then what is it that they need to perform. Is it an interview? Is it something they write? Is it something they develop? And these are also related to workforce preparation and workforce training outcomes. And so, which is funded by the 243, which Robert was just telling you about. So these civic objectives have become a very important part of California's adult education landscape. And there was a great article in the COAAP journal that was written by Lori Howard that explains what this process is. And we really encourage other agencies to look at these, and feel free to adapt them for your program, because we've really taken the work out of spelling out what are the objectives and what are the rubrics for scoring at all different levels for the ESL students. So the students are very excited about this. We've also taken this a step further to show how these COAAPs align with immigrant integration. And we call these the Immigrant Integration Indicators, or I3, and we have reports that can be generated out of TOPS Pro. So as a state, we can look across all the agencies to see how well are our immigrants integrating, and by all these different categories. So this just shows an example of, from, again, our fictitious Rolling Hills Adult School, how many students responded to COAAP number 40, which was respond to questions about U.S. history and government. And it shows that there were 37 attempts and that 28 students passed this. So, and then under economic security, COAAP number 6 is identify housing issues and tenant rights. And again, there were 90 students that attempted and 83 passed. So again, this would help guide instruction on who needs to continue to work on these to be able to demonstrate through performance assessment that they've mastered either of these COAAPs. And the agencies in California choose the COAAPs based on student surveys and community surveys. So they choose which COAAPs they're going to be working on. Every year they have to do a needs assessment with their students and their community to decide which ones they're going to focus on. So it's a very dynamic and a way to localize what are the needs in specific communities. So again, this information shows what instruction would be valuable. And we'll look at one other report, and this is a student performance report out of TOPS Pro again, and this shows that students were at level C, and this was just one student. It could be, we also have class reports. And on the left column, you can see there's a competency area number, and then it shows how many items were correct in the second column. So we're going to just focus on a couple of areas. So this has been sorted by the number of correct and then by the competency area. So for competency 1.4, this refers to understand methods and procedures to obtain housing. So this student didn't get any of those questions right that pertain to that competency. And 5.1, understand voting and political process. Again, the student was not able to answer those questions. So this again provides information for the instructor looking at an individual student, or if they pull the class report, would be able to look across the class and also see what's needed. So now I'll pass this back to Robert to address what about 1.4 or 5.1.
And again, you know, what I love is huge kudos to our friends at CASAS who have made moving from paper and pencil to you know, computer delivered through e-tests, and then as Jane shares here, how easily TOPS Pro can, I always say, free the data. You know, in the programs I worked with there in Southwest Florida, you know, we were lucky enough. We typically had like an assessment room, a registration room, and I was always trying to think, how can I get those results out of that registration room and into, you know, teachers' hands so that we can make really, really educated decisions, no pun intended, with our learners. And so again, I'm going to be teeing off here to show how easy it is, you know, to move through Burlington English, you know, to address these right here. So first and foremost, again, what I'm looking at is if you're, by the way, oh, if anybody in the chat, if you're new, either you don't have access yet to Burlington English, or if you're relatively brand new to Burlington English, would you put that in the chat? So if you don't have it yet, or relatively new, if you'd put in the chat as far as Burlington English, and particularly, I keep saying new core, but actually out a little less than 2 years, but really we worked for years to, really get for all those teachers, whether you're that 10% or the full-time teachers, or you're, like I was for so many years, 90%, that part-time hourly teacher. We really wanted to make it so super easy, particularly with us who don't have a lot of prep time. We want you to be able to come right into class, if you will, whether that class is in a building or on site. And again, have projectable lessons with seamlessly blended to what students are going to need. And people are blown away to know that Burlington Core has very, very, very strong, of course, alignment, not just to CASAS, but of course to these citizenship and civics efforts that we want to, definitely be part of. So let me again go here. I'm going to go ahead to show you what I have on the screen here. I'm going to go ahead to actually the program. All right. So let me jump. I'm going to jump back to the actual Burlington program, and let's see. Let's go ahead to my. I'm going to pull up again. If you're new to Burlington English, we've got everything all in one place. No running around. So I'm going to pick my core level again. All the components all in one place, all our version of the teacher's edition, if you will, the course and lesson planner. I can see what the students were going to be doing, in their student lessons. I can check student progress. I've got my worksheets. So I've got, as Jane says, I've got my data now in front of me, right? I've got my data. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that search feature, which is going to make it so nice. And so let's go ahead and pick my correlations, okay? And let's go ahead and correlate it to the CASAS competencies here. Now, okay, this is again, check for comprehension. This is so fantastic. Who remembers and if you do, you're blowing me out of the water. Who remembers the two numerical digits that Jane showed as far as housing? Anybody remember that as far as in that report? Boy, this will really show Jane some black belts out there. Does anybody remember the two numbers that were? Oh my, that's Literacy Center of West Michigan. Vanessa, oh man, that's it. I'm going to let you all run the show. That's right. So it's fantastic. So look how easy it is to immediately take that CASAS data. And again, here's that 1.4. Thank you, ladies. And understand methods and procedures to obtain housing and related services. And so all I have to do is just click apply. And I love that this is all, done for me here. So I've got my, let me go ahead and highlight it here. I'm going to go ahead, 1.4. And I'm going to grab, let's see, jumped down the wrong one. See if I'd gone down a little further. There you go. So I've got 1.4 and I've got my housing, looking for an apartment. So again, it takes me just seconds to quickly match those areas where my students are most in need. So really, really love this part. And again, if I needed to do the same with with government and law, remember we were doing that one, I can easily go and find that as well. All right, so now back to our PowerPoint. This is the first time I'm living on the edge here. I usually totally rely on the PowerPoint, but figured I'd go ahead with the program itself. So again, I've got a super easy search feature here, can find things super, super easily and jump right into the program. So again, 1.4, understand methods and procedures to obtain housing. And then 5.1, understand voting in the political process. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, and because we already had this in the Q&A part, how do I get started? Okay, so how do I get started? We've talked about, moving from paper and pencil to electronic delivery of CASAS. And so with that, I'll turn that over to Jane, if you would. And I might have lost Jane for just a second.
Sorry about that. I had a noisy neighborhood event, so I put myself on mute. Thank you for catching it. CASAS has many resources on our website, and there is lots of training modules that are available at no cost at your convenience. And it's very easy to get signed up. You go to step one, you just create an account which only asks for your name, your agency, and that way then you are able to then go to step two, is then to click on training, and then that will take you right into all the training modules that are available. So we have a lot of resources that you can either be certified to use CASAS, or maybe you're already certified and you just need some help on how to run reports or how to set up your students, or how to read the reports. And those resources are at your fingertips. So we encourage you to go to our website and to take advantage of all the training that's available for you there. You can also contact us at casas.org, and somebody will be able to get back to you either with an email or set up an appointment for a call, and we'll help you.
Excellent. And same as in Burlington English, if you'd like to take what you've heard to the next level, of course, we've got, many of you said you're relatively new or getting familiar with, particularly with Burlington Core. So we have, touch of a button, learn at your own pace, as it says here, any time or day. So we have got archives, so we've got on-demand training there. We've got a fantastic monthly calendar. If you use Burlington English, of course, once you log in to your account, you'll see that training tile, and you just click on training to access these. So if you want to see Natalie, Claudia Yorandi for years has done such a fantastic, big shout out to Claudia and her amazing calendar. So if you want to join in on live, interactive, I want to emphasize interactive. So you really, 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 really walk away truly knowing, these different things in our virtual training. And then, as you know, we'll customize training for you with, virtually delivered face to face, if you will. So whether you need a small group of teachers or your entire school, how to better integrate civics and citizenship, then please, without a doubt, reach out. I've got all these colleagues all across the country. So please reach out to burlingtonenglish.com/contact, and we'll definitely set something up for you. I know we covered a lot of ground today, and so you'll see our emails there. If you had from today's session, what would you say in the chat? Would you place in what was something new that you might have heard today, or what did you, or what do you think now that you have heard today's webinar? What might you go and try in your classroom? Is there anything that you might try in your classroom, or was there any information at all that was new to you? Thank you. Ready? There's Illinois in the house. Yes. Oh yeah. Search features. Yes. Yep. Filtering CASAS. Yeah. I love the fact that you don't have to run around to so many different things. Yes. Thank you. Or listening comprehension. Big, 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 big. Love it. Listening comprehension. Didn't know you could search for the correlations. Exactly. And also, please, everybody, if you haven't made that leap yet to CASAS e-test, just fantastic. I was sharing with Jane years ago, I'd have to have at least 3 boom boxes, Jane, three tape players, 3 separate rooms, 3 separate proctors, and so nice for the for e-test, because I can do it all in one room, right, Jane?
That's right. One room, all levels.
Yes.
And you can do it remotely as well. So that opens up other opportunities for those students that can't come to the classroom or the brick and mortar class.
Love it. Well, everybody, and to our friends, our hosts here, COAAP, who did such a great job all the time, to our friends, James Bonney. And by the way, everybody, please, 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 the COAAP Journal, is looking for submissions. So if you haven't gotten that email, or check out coaab.org. And of course, it's fantastic. We're all looking forward to Seattle next year for their, whether in person or online, the hybrid. So with that, again, please reach out to Jane or myself. We'd love to help take your integration of civics and citizenship to the next level. So thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a treat to co-present with you on behalf of COAAP, and we just wish you all a very successful fall semester.
Same here. And again, anybody, for anything that you covered, particularly on training and everything, please reach out to our friends at CASAS. And then, like I said, if the Workforce Innovation Act or integrating IELCE, we do grant writing as well, please reach out to us at Burlington English. We'd love to help you. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic afternoon. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Robert. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.